Hello and welcome to Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby. Delighted to be joined today by Rajen Madan from Leading Point. How are you?
Pleasure meeting you, Toby.
Great to see you. Thanks so much for coming in. So, look, a really interesting business you've got here. You're now moving into your third year. Exciting times for yourself and for the company. For those who haven't heard of it back at home so far, tell us a little bit about you, your background, and how you've found yourself now.
So I've had three lives. My first life was in automotives, nothing to do with financial services, but it was about commercializing cars and launching them in new markets. The last 20 years has been in financial services exclusively, where I'm a change person, I'm a change guy. I've run projects as in-line roles and interim roles and consulting roles, basically delivering change outcomes for banks, insurers, and asset managers. So that's bit about my background.
That's where you are now.
Yes, and still enjoying it.
and Leading Point started a little while ago. It's been a good journey so far for you. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So for people who don't know what Leading Point is, so Leading Point is a solutions delivery company. We are way focused on combining data, innovative technology, and the reimagining around it in a few niche areas. And so we like to call it as we're really intersecting the old world with the new in financial services. So we work with a lot of fintechs on one hand, solution providers, and then we work with established financial institutions to really take and tackle some of the probably less sexy but more important enterprise-grade problems which they see.
I think this is such an interesting area, and it's well positioned, isn't it? Because this over the last 4 or 5 years, I think you've seen this sort of friction between the institutional and the newer players sort of get ever closer. It was very, very difficult beforehand, wasn't it? It was like one was strangling the other a little bit, and all this benefit and value that could be given was choked out, for want of a better expression. And now with businesses like yourselves and further solutions and probably a little bit of thawing of the Cold War from this side, you've started to see some real benefit from it. Now, I think this positioning from you to be able to look at both sides is fascinating. What do you see as some of the sort of key ingredients for both worlds to really get the most out of each other and thrive?
So I think if you look at the more established players, what are the pressures they're really facing, in terms of their demands? They've got a window of time, 3 to 5 years to really crunch through their cost bases, because the cost is a big challenge for a number of the established ones. The culture and the word legacy used to mean a very good thing. We hear legacy now being talked about. This legacy, can we get rid of it? And so I think the more established players are facing the challenge of cost. They after years of spending money on compliance and regulation project by project, they've sort of fallen a little short. Which is still there. It continues to abate, but they haven't really invested in it as capabilities, as part of simply doing business. And so the cost base is bloated. The infrastructure side is bloated, and they want to innovate. They want to, there's a real desire in these companies to adapt, but they're being hamstrung. So that's kind of the more established segment. That's their challenge: culture, cost, spend more money on getting alpha. Where is my next revenue pools coming from? Where do I grow?
And making the right calls, right?
And making the right calls.
It's very easy to invest in the wrong sort of plays, and we've seen that a lot of institutional investment into businesses that are the wrong picks.
I think as you said, what's been happening with the fintechs over the last 3-4 years as well, there's a sense of maturity that is coming up. There's some critical mass that's coming up. But a number of them still they've been rather too focused, too tech focused. And so the challenge they have is about how they can be more enterprise grade. So try and be a little bit beyond technology. What does that world look like, mean? What does relationship management actually mean? What does risk management, running your banking book actually mean? What does liquidity mean? So they have to sort of also invest in capabilities. And that's a fascinating tension, because both sides actually have to work together or at least grow in different directions.
I think that's a really interesting fact, because it's long been saying that this one of the critical issues with the fintech world, and where you see companies thrive and not thrive is whether they have that blend of technology and business strategy acting at the same sort of stage. And the sales of getting those people on board and embedded with it, if you have the commercial mind within that, generally it'll fly. There's a lot of businesses, however, who haven't necessarily got the most and very, very tech-heavy heads, who love to preach about the benefit of what they're doing and how they're solving an important problem that isn't a problem on the other side, that isn't, or certainly isn't delivered to it. So is that something you're helping with and bridging that gap as well?
Yeah, so what we are bridging is effectively we're trying to bring an integrated approach.
Yeah.
So if I talk about a few of our niche areas that we have solutions in, these are areas of, for example, one of them is anti-financial crime. So the ability to digitally onboard and KYC your clients, reduce friction in that journey, be able to understand their transaction behavior and suspicious transactions. So it really is a data meets technology, and what's now possible with some of the technologies in places, you can achieve true reimagining, which was being done in a very different and siloed way. And that's, and so for each of our solutions and solution journeys, anti-financial crime being one, the unstructured data management being another, treasury being the third, and information security, cyber risk being the fourth. That's all what we focus on. For each one of them, we're seeing a very interesting play to be able to provide this integrated approach, which has been historically missing. So it's often been, to your point, spent a lot on the tech. What's the return on it? Or, every organization has got so much spend in the data space. What is the return from it? What's the delivery from it?
There's a very interesting part that you mentioned there with regards to the world of data and programs that would get if they're turned off, would anyone notice? And I think that's been a big issue, hasn't it? There's been a huge buzz around a number of different things, data being a very, very prominent part of that. And indeed with many aspects of new technology and AI and various other parts of that, robotics. But with data specifically, you're seeing people have a sort of gold rush to this world. Without necessarily knowing that the pure benefit that comes into that. I know you're a passionate data man.
Yes.
At the same sort of stage. Where do you really see the biggest return coming from in that space?
In the data space?
Yeah.
It's a very good question. It is a gold rush.
Yeah.
I think the way we try and describe it, that you have to look at two sides to it. One is, are you getting your data basics right? And the other is, what's your innovation appetite or desire to work on that data? The data that you have in both a structured format, but also the data that's sat in your legal agreements, your documents, which actually isn't being used, understood, and exploited for your business. So we look at it in terms of, have you got your data basics right? What's your innovation architecture around data? And I think, again, what the trend that I start seeing is, there's been clearly players who've gone double down and triple down on AI, which I, personally, we do think there's a huge opportunity. There's a huge opportunity with this, but not necessarily actually having looked at the data basics. So that doesn't marry up well. You can have the best technology and algorithms written on it. But I was reading yesterday actually a quote on, I think it was on a LinkedIn, which said, a good decision based on bad data is a bad decision. So we do think there's a huge opportunity with the AI, as you mentioned. But we also think that companies need to get a lot more precise and and focused in actually getting the data basics right.
It goes into anything. So, you look at it in the financial services world. You look at it in my world, in the recruitment industry. Decisions are made based off the data that's inputted into the system. And if exactly as you say, if that data entry is wrong or inaccurate, you're making poor business decisions. If that data is accurate, you're able to it basically gives you a crystal ball. It allows you to make the best possible decisions to really streamline your business further forward. And I think people who are investing into that area quite often are expecting it to be the crystal ball without the work that goes alongside it, right?
Absolutely. So it might not be all about UX, about UI, about AI, nice, clean front ends.
Yeah.
There's a lot of middle and back end, the core in the organizations.
Yeah.
That needs to be churned and almost set the foundation for that for the next 3-5 years.
And you're there to help steer people through that particular journey and get the best out of that.
That's exactly where we are.
So with this concept of the old and the new, and this sort of fascinating collision that we're having at the moment, and speaking again of crystal balls, what does your crystal ball say about the market at the moment?
We think that there's going to be a real pressure on and focus on delivery.
Okay.
And the world of strategy advisory is good. It has its place, but people are getting much more. We see this in our conversations all the time.
Yeah.
People want to know, like, what can you execute?
Yeah.
What can you execute in a quarter?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be 100%, but get me a notch, from 0 to 1 in this quarter.
Yeah.
Then help me get from 1 to 2 in the next 2 quarters.
Yeah.
And the external drivers like we have in terms of the LIBOR replacement, that has huge impact on treasury.
Yeah.
How you manage your cash flow, your liquidity as every business is going to be paramount. And we know that a lot of organizations struggle with that.
Yeah.
But this is where technology and the right data around it can be a huge help.
Yeah.
Because you can actually get an environment which is reduce the reconciliations to virtually, negligible.
Yeah.
And to be able to understand from your business perspective what your, fairly near-time, real-time cash flows are, it's going to be more and more paramount. So people will look at external drivers like LIBOR, like Brexit, continuity, like, the senior managers regime, like a lot of focus on anti-financial crime.
Yeah.
So there's that external driver. And then from an internal perspective, there's a real thirst for where are my new products, what's going to make me more revenues?
Yeah.
How do I address my margin pressure?
Yeah.
How do I create my brand?
Yeah.
And the next 2 years, 3 years is going to be about, we will see fairly large shifts in the market, in our view. You'd see you have to be very niche or focused or actually have a brand, or you have a sheer scale. I think the players that get caught in the middle are going to really struggle.
In terms of your journey and your business, it's the first 2 years are always interesting, aren't they? And you go through that sort of curve from pure excitement to starting to get things to become a little bit more real and such like.
Sure.
I know you've just had a couple of a day away strategizing and being locked in rooms till early hours of the morning. Tell us a little bit about your journey. What's been fun during what you've done so far?
So I think it has never felt like work.
Yeah.
And that to me is a good sign of your. It is hard work. It is challenging. But if your net scorecard, your own personal scorecard at the end of it is that you're seeing a real path to something that's going to be fairly compelling, and you're having fun, and it doesn't feel like work, then, it doesn't feel like that. I wouldn't lie to you at all and say, look, this is exactly how we thought we'll grow, and, it's been completely smooth. But, 2 years in, we really did an exercise actually just charting out in our offsite day, what were we in year one, and it turns out to be largely a 2 to 5 people construct, and there's an year's worth of work that goes into to landing into that configuration. For year 2, it's been a year of balanced, so we have invested a fair amount in R&D in terms of developing our own solution stack, and we've, I think, also made more concrete our solution plays. So the 4 areas I mentioned, anti-financial crime, treasury, information security, and unstructured data management. So these are our 4 mini businesses going forward. So I think we took heart from just calibrating ourselves in terms of what have we got in terms of clients, in terms of partnerships, in terms of people, and in terms of the IP being built. We were amazed at what we did in year 2, and it felt like a treadmill. But it was actually good to see that we now have a good foundation. So year 3 for us is actually monetizing our partnerships, doing what we're doing for a larger number of organizations,
Yeah.
fintechs and established FIs, and basically helping the community, adding value in any way that we can.
Yeah.
We run this data kitchen initiative, which is anyone who's got an interest in learning about data, you know.
How do people get involved in that?
Just simply register. So we have 4 chefs that we try and get as part of every data kitchen.
Yeah.
So the first one was about how do you build a personal brand.
Yeah.
The second one is about cybersecurity.
Yeah.
If you're interested, I can share details with yourselves. And anyone who's interested, it's all public, it's all free.
Yeah.
It's at our base at City Point. And it's fairly informal and non-corporate.
Listen, it's been lovely talking to you. Thanks so much for sharing everything about the business and the market and some fascinating areas which I think are really, really important to where the market goes. So listen, it's lovely to see how the business is developing. It's great to see you again, and good luck with everything that's going ahead.
Thank you,
so
Toby.
much.
It's a real pleasure speaking to you and what you're doing for the market.
Well, we love it, so it's good. Look, listen, thanks to everyone for watching. We'll be back with another FinTech Focus TV very soon. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Cheers.